I feel happy standing here today, but it's also a little strange. When I left the school, which was 20 years ago, this auditorium was being built. We had the old auditorium on top of the old school building. And I think the last time I stood on that stage was probably 25 years ago. Now, I feel old. I left the school as a child, as a kid, just like you, and now I've come back as a grown-up, like an uncle. It feels a little strange. Before I share what I've come here to share with you, I'd like to share a little bit of my history with school, which is from a whole different era than where you are at now. Maybe I'll share some of those little memories. I came to Silver Hills in 1995, third standard, and left the school in 2005. I finished my plus two. I was a decent student. I had decent grades, but it's not the grades, it's not the erudition that I remember the most. It's the atmosphere that was here that was most conducive to my interests. And it wasn't just my interests, it was the interests that many of my classmates had, varied interests that the school allowed us to pursue. I remember when I graduated from the fourth standard to the fifth standard, I started participating in science fairs. I was an active participant in all school science fairs along with my classmates. And I had this great curiosity and inclination to experiment, do little science experiments. And the school exhibition, science fairs, was a great avenue. That led to going out of the school and representing the school at the sub-district level, district level, state level. You know how it works. You've been doing it. But it was fun. I loved it. And like I said, there was a relentless curiosity. And there was this other thing, which I would think have had a very big impact on my life, which was the electronics lab here. I recently got to know that the lab is no more. It was shut down some 10, 15 years ago, so I'm really saddened to hear that. There was an electronics lab here, and once a week, students could go tinker or experiment at the electronics lab. We had a wonderful teacher. Or if your inclination was towards music, you could go to the music lab, music class. So naturally for me, somebody who was very inclined with experimenting, I picked the electronics lab. And we'd look forward to the class, we'd go there, we'd play with little circuit boards. Imagine, this is the 1990s, before computers were common, before smartphones, before mobile phones even. But we had an electronics lab here. We'd play with little circuits, we would solder small little chips, we would experiment, and it was extremely fascinating. I don't know if any other school out there had such a lab. But for me, for someone like me who was so interested in experimenting and tinkering, it was like a beautiful place. I could follow my hobby, I could pursue my hobby, but it also was a little official because the school had a system for it. So me and my friends, my classmates, we started going out representing the school in electronics competitions, science fair. Then there was the computer lab. Now that was very pivotal to me as an individual, not just me, my classmates also. We had a computer lab with very, very old school computers. Computers I don't think you can imagine today. Small little computers, 10,000 times slower than your average smartphone today. No graphics, nothing visual, just text, MS-DOS systems. We'd go walk into the computer lab once a week. We'd learn how to type like this, We were taught typing. We'd learn basic commands. And that also really kindled my imagination as an inquisitive student. So I liked science experiments. I liked electronics experiments. Now you can imagine that it was a rather natural progression to computer experiments. And by a sheer stroke of luck, I got access to a personal computer when I was in the 7th standard, or just when I was finishing it. I came from an exceedingly modest family, so getting a personal computer back then was rather unimaginable, but it happened. And that changed my life. All the tinkering, all the experimentation, all the small little problem solving that I was doing, it just transitioned beautifully into computers, where you're not really limited by hardware, you're not limited by physical materiality, you're limited only by your time, patience, and imagination. So from science experiments to electronics, I got into writing code. That was 8th standard here, Silver Hills. And I started building small little tools. I started learning by myself. I'd come to the school, do things we do at the school. I'd go home, I'd do my schoolwork at home. And right after that, I'd get on the personal computer and start an experiment. And this was before internet was common. There was no YouTube. You could barely play a video online. There were no smartphones. And very, very, very few people had computers. So that's why I stress that it was that one lucky stroke of life that happened to me. And I really got into writing code. When I was in the 8th standard here, I started making small little software utilities, tools. I started publishing it. And it grew and grew and grew. Passion became obsession. I was obsessed with computers. And that started showing in my grades. As I said earlier, I was a decent student with decent grades. But when you split your time between your studies and your passion, one of those things starts to suffer a little bit. So my grades dropped. Not drastically, but they did drop a little bit. And the teachers were concerned. But by the time I was in the 10th standard here, I'd become obsessed. Must have been 14, 15 years old. And I didn't have a clue of life ahead. We're told there's school, there's college, there's a job, then there is life. That's the vague idea that we develop when we hit high school. But I was unable to think like that because I was so lost in experimentation. I was so lost in fiddling with computers, in learning, that one thing was clear to me. Whatever I did after school, I wanted the freedom and liberty to experiment. Whatever course I did, whichever college I went to, I wanted to write software. I wanted to build and experiment. That conviction somehow I developed. But you couldn't have developed such a thing if the school or the ecosystem or your family, the atmosphere, didn't have support for it. I'd like to remember one very, very vivid and maybe even unnatural thing that happened here. 2003, I was selected to represent the school and the state at the South India Science Fair in Tamil Nadu, Salem. And I remember this was 3 or 4 months prior to the SSLC board exams. And you can imagine it's the most stressful, tense time for students, teachers, family, everyone. And this was a 5-day program. So if I wanted to participate, and it was a big deal representing the state, I'd cleared state. So I decided not to go, parents decided not to send me, and all was well. But then one day, I still remember, it was around 6 o'clock, Father Jose, our erstwhile principal, who was a very keen supporter of everything extracurricular, he phoned home. He spoke to my mother, and he convinced my mother to send me to Salem. He gave me 5 days off. Imagine, this is 3 months prior to the SSLC board exams. It's a big risk. The headmaster is calling, and he's like, he can take 5 days off, no issues. In addition, he also sent a computer teacher along with me for 5 days to Salem. So he convinced my parents. I went and I participated. I was in Salem for 5 days. It was the first time I'd done anything like that. You can imagine I was 15 years old. And we did the whole thing. I won the second place and came back. Now, I can't stress the importance of that one moment. That one evening, the headmaster randomly called home. That was, again, a turning point in my life. Going out of the state at such a juncture, 3-4 months prior to the board exams, representing the state, representing the school in a South India level competition, trying to showcase what I was doing as a hobby, which is computer programming, with the official blessings of the school. You can imagine how crazy that was. It was crazy. So that is, thinking back, why do you think the school principal, and he was a very strict principal, we would tremble at the sight of his shadow. He was a bit of a terror. But why do you think the headmaster would have done that. Would he have done that overnight? Not really. I think he'd noticed that for years, 7th to 5th to 7th standard with all the electronic stuff, all the science stuff, and from 8th to 10th, all the computer stuff, I think he'd paid attention to what I was doing. And it only happened because I'd been doing it consistently, day after day, year after year, making small little incremental improvements for fun, for my own understanding, for curiosity. And that, all those small little things that I was doing, enabled that moment. 2005, I finished my +2. And as I said earlier, it was clear to me that whatever I did, wherever I went, what I wanted was the liberty to experiment and innovate and figure out things. So I decided not to do engineering, BTech. It's a very standard career path. You do BTech or you do medicine. It's a very well laid out trajectory. But I decided not to do it because I realized 4 years of intense academic work would not allow me the liberty to do what I wanted to do, which was experiment. And by a sheer stroke of turn of events, by extreme luck again, I won a partial scholarship and I went to London, where I did a BSc Computer Science. Now I say sheer lucky stroke of events, but what is luck really? I mean, if I was sitting at home and doing nothing, hoping for luck to strike, nothing would have happened. If I'd never put in years and years of effort into learning a little bit every day, experimenting with those electronic circuits or computers, nothing would have happened. So luck really is a game of probability. The more you are at it for something, the more you are at it, the higher the probability of something good happening out of it, unpredictable. So my going to London to study was a completely unpredictable event. And I end up there, and then another turn of events happen. After studying there for 3 years, the university offers me a full scholarship to do a PhD. Now, a PhD is where you do research, deep research in a specific subject or topic of interest. And mine was artificial intelligence. This was 2008. It was an obscure academic topic back then, but today it's a mainstream word. We read about AI every single day. We use AI every single day, knowingly or unknowingly, and especially the last 3-4 years, you would all have heard of ChatGPT. The world has changed as we know it, and I'll come to that in a little bit. So I spent 6 years in the university researching, but all the while I was doing that, I was still on the side coding, programming, solving small little problems. And our respected father pointed out the example of the dictionary project. It was 2010, and I was really frustrated with the lack of an online English-Malayalam dictionary. I'm a Malayali. I'm involved in a lot of Malayalam-related things. I read a lot of literature. So once in a while, I wanted to look up Malayalam words, and I didn't have an offline dictionary. I didn't have a dictionary in hand, and I was always on the computer, so I wanted a digital dictionary. It simply didn't exist. So this kept on nagging me and frustrating me month after month, year after year. And one day, I got really annoyed. I got really pissed off and frustrated, and I decided to build a dictionary on my own. Because I had the ability to build a digital dictionary, because I knew how to build software, because that's what I'd been doing for 10 years, all the way from school to university, I sat one day and made a dictionary. I called it OLAM, O-L-A-M. And the first 5,000 plus English Malayalam words, I typed it in myself, like a dictionary maker. Very amateur, shoddy job I did. Then I realized that it's not just me who'd be facing this problem. There are many people, millions of people who'd like to use a dictionary. So I put it online. That's how generally open source, the idea of open source software, if you've heard of it, works. You build something that solves a problem for you or your friends or your family, and you share it with the world so that others who face the same problems can use the same solution. Your effort is amplified. So I published OLAM online, and people started using it. I built it for myself, for me to look up words, but people started using it. And it grew and grew. This October is the 15th anniversary of that one small project that I did. And I think today, over 25 lakh Malayalam speakers use that dictionary on a monthly basis. So it's become like a big project. It's become like a very useful. Thank you. Valuable resource. And people have contributed to it. Tens of thousands of Malayalis across the world have contributed words to it. It's like Wikipedia, but it's a dictionary. And when I did it out of frustration. But because I was able to channel that frustration creatively into a solution, it found a life of its own. I think it perhaps is one of my most positive projects out there. I had no clue that it would grow. I had no clue where it would land. But that is the power of incremental improvements. If I'd started out thinking, oh, tomorrow I'm going to change the world, I don't think much would have happened. And I think I would have been disappointed. So one big learning lesson in my life has been not to really make really big, grand goals in life. You should have a broad direction of where you want to head, your interests. But if you're in your 12th standard or 10th standard and you think that, you know what, I'm going to change the world tomorrow or after I finish college, I don't think that's very productive. But if you focus on one thing that interests you, that one little thing, be it a science experiment, be it an electronics thing, be it literature, be it history, be it whatever, if you have that one little passion, I think you should be at it, improving a little bit every day. Your goal should be to make one small improvement every day. And you never know when all those improvements compound into something bigger. And my entire life's journey has been that. From the school sending me to Salem, to getting a scholarship and going elsewhere, and everything. So I finished my university, I was experimenting all the while, and once I got my PhD, I immediately came back to Kerala. Because I'd left India to study, and the moment I finished studying, I came back, because that much was clear to me. Was that good for my idea of a career in general? I don't know. It could have been a disastrous mistake, because once I got my PhD, there were a bunch of really good opportunities to continue research, to be in the industry, get a good job, etc. But I took 6 months to figure out. I said no to everything and just came back to Calicut, of all places. This was 2011, I think. And I came back because I wanted to solve problems here in India. I wanted to use the skills I'd been building, my interests, my hobbies, my passion, whatever it was, to do things here. And that's what I've been doing ever since. I ended up moving to Bangalore because Bangalore had much better internet than Calicut. Calicut had terrible internet in 2010-11. And I've been in Bangalore. I've been involved in many different things. Father also mentioned Zerodha. Zerodha we are an investment technology company. You would have heard of share markets. People buy and sell shares. It's in the newspapers every day. So we are the largest share investment platform in India. When you grow up, when you start, whatever it is that you're starting, and you'd like to plan your life's finances, you'd be perhaps investing in stock markets. That would be through one of our platforms or somebody else's. So that has been my primary project all these years. But I have continued to experiment. I have continued to write code every day. And I have continued to learn every day. Now I'd like to come back to AI. I said my research in the late 2000s was in AI. It was an obscure academic topic rather. And AI is not new. People have been researching AI for 60, 70 years. And every decade there have been small little incremental improvements. So I left research. I successfully completed my research in AI and I left it because that was it. It was an academic thing. Nobody really knew what would happen in the next 15 years. When GPT-4 came out in 3-4 years ago, the world changed. My understanding as a research scientist from 12-13 years prior to that was challenged by the big breakthrough, which was large language models, LLMs, you would have again heard. We chat with ChatGPT today. just like how we chat with a human being, we chat with Gemini, we chat with all these AI tools that are available everywhere. You can speak to it, you can converse with it in your language, you can even converse with it in colloquial Malayalam. It understands everything. So it's a technology that unlike anything before, and I use it every day. Now, one thing that I've noticed, and this is a critical thing that I'd like to share here, is that AI is so powerful, today's AI, is that you can use it to do your work. You can ask it to do your homework. In fact, many large universities are going back to written exams and written essays and whatnot because of the rampant usage of AI to do homework. Now, if you can't trust anything online, digitally, because you don't know if a human did it or AI did it, that's going to be a bit problematic. So you can use AI to get your stuff done and save a lot of time. Or you can do it to, or you can use it to learn incrementally. And I think when you use which approach matters. Today, as a senior engineer, senior technologist who's been doing this for like 25 years, I use it to save a lot of time. A technology project that would take me 6 months, today I can do it in 6 hours. Something that would take me 6 hours, I can do it in a minute. It is so extremely powerful, and I know how to use it exactly because I've spent the last 2 decades learning the fundamentals, the basic skills required to understand what goes underneath these things. But imagine you're a young computer programmer, just starting out, 21 years old, just trying to learn this stuff, and you start depending on AI to solve your problems for you. I think that's going to be quite disastrous. And I see this every day in the industry. There are companies out there who have stopped hiring junior programmers. Imagine, right? A junior becomes a senior. Once you get into a job, you gain experience, you learn. Over a period of time, you become a senior. But when AI can do what a junior person can do, why do you need junior people? And I think that's a very dangerous and risky trend in the industry. And I know of so many companies who've just stopped hiring young people. So what can one do? I think young people who are starting out, irrespective of where is it that you're starting out, be it technology, programming, like I said, literature, history, whatever it is, right? You need to focus on building fundamental skills. You can use AI. You should use AI. If you don't use AI, you're probably losing out on time and effort. On a daily basis, I use AI as a teacher, as a research assistant with unlimited patience. You know, we always have those stupid questions in the mind, right? Some of these questions are so silly that you don't even feel like asking your teacher. You ask 2 questions, you have a 3rd question, you have a 4th question, you have a 5th question, and you can't really question a human being like that. They'll get annoyed. But AI systems don't have this concept of boredom. You can ask 10,000 questions over and over. Explain this to me. How does this work? Explain to me why the Battle of Plassey in India's history was important. The AI will explain it to you. And you can tell it, I didn't really get that. Why was it really important? What was its relevance? If it had happened somewhere else, would it have affected India's trajectory? You can ask it a million questions and it'll give you answers. So I use it every day as a research assistant, as a learning tool to enable daily learning, to enable daily incremental innovation. The learning tool is infinite patience. So I would encourage you to use these tools in such a manner, because don't forget that ChatGPT, when it does something great for you, it's also doing the same thing for billions of other people. Everybody on the planet can log into chatgpt.com and get the exact same things. So you don't really have an advantage. If it writes an essay for you, it can write an essay for every single human on the planet. So what can differentiate an individual? It's still fundamental skills. You have to build your creativity, your passion, and your fundamental skills. And perhaps one last thing, and I think this is when I'll establish myself as a cringe uncle. I'd like to talk about social media. You know, all this while I've spoken about experimenting, learning every day, doing something small, new, every single day. That's what I've been doing. Even yesterday, I was working on a small little project, apart from other stuff, other things that I do. To enable that, I told you earlier, back in the day, when I was in high school here, I'd do school stuff in the school, I'd go home and do school work, then I would spend the next several hours trying to learn programming and computing. But for that, you need time. And I was online. I went online in the year 2000, when internet was, I think, 1 lakh times lower than today's average broadband. I went online, and I was so lucky to have been online, to have gotten to have witnessed what transpired. Went online in an era before social media. Then social media slowly started getting built. There was this thing called Orkut. It doesn't exist. There was a thing called Friendster. Then there was this thing called MySpace. I don't know if you've heard of it. These are all stepping stones to what would become today's social media, which is Facebook, Instagram, etc. And I was like any of you. I was a student, decent student. But something clicked. And early on, I figured that the social media stuff isn't worth my personal time, because I'd like to spend 2-3 hours every day extra on doing what I truly like doing. So I've never been on social media. I've been online exactly for 25 years now. I don't use social media. I've never been really on social media. And I think one reason why I've been able to learn, I've been able to keep up with learning a little bit every single day, is because I have so many hours extra in a day, which I don't inadvertently end up spending on social media. So it's not really one of those, I don't want to make it sound like an advice, an older person telling a younger person. All I would say is, be cognizant of the time that social media consumes in your life, because that is valuable life energy. These things suck up on a daily basis. So if you want to focus on stuff that interests you, stuff for societal good, making that one small incremental change a day, you need time in life. You need to have the ability to focus. So I thought I'd just leave it there. And yeah, like I said, it's very nostalgic. It's so extremely nostalgic that I'm standing here again and it's raining outside. We would, back in the day, sometimes pray for the rains to flood this road. It was always flooded so that the school would let us off early, Nothing changes. Generation after generation, we all want to, for the school bell to ring early. So it's all sweet memories for me. And I hope whatever I wanted to share, it made some sense to you. With that, I'll conclude. Thank you. Thank you.